Part 1 are maps and globes. I find that this is a very reoccurring piece in dark academia aesthetic, so I'm starting off with maps and grabbing some wrapping paper for this. You could also use brown packing paper or, depending on the size, just a normal size printer piece of paper. You can tea dye the whole thing or make tea, mud, or paint watered down with water and brush it on by hand. It all depends on if you want it a super aged or crisp, nice, and new, realistic type of map. I wanted to go with more of a fantasy, old, almost treasure map style, so I did rip some of the edges, almost going for the top part was burnt off and it's an unfinished look. Also, of course, depending on what you're putting on the map, you can make it completely realistic and trying to match the proper shapes and sizes of things, like of the whole world or of the country or the state you live in, but I went for completely random marks with Sharpie and markers and tea and mud to just go for a random, interesting, sort of fantastical land map of sorts. I tried to do some more burn details by using markers and ripping open that spot so it kind of looked like there was soot around said burn holes, and I think that gave it a really nice effect. You can hang them up on your wall, use them as a display piece. I think they both turned out really fun. For the globe, again, there is a bunch of creative liberties that you can take, but the first main thing you will need is obviously the sphere part of the globe, and I didn't want to waste a ton of clay as well as make it really heavy, so I started out with some aluminum foil, balled that up, and then used the clay that I had made earlier by doing flour, salt, and water, just like in my Goblin Core video, rolling that out and covering it, trying to make it even, but not worrying too much about making it absolutely perfect. Depending on the size that you made the sphere piece will depend on the size that you need of stand, stake, and piece to curve around, gluing all the pieces together, bending that wire around properly, and I just covered the whole thing in a beige base, just to have it all one color and a bit easier to work with, and I did think I was going to go with this lighter brown sort of color scheme, and with the details I did sort of start off painting blue-green fictitious islands, if you will, but I ended up just thinking it was a little too modern and crisp and not really the color scheme that I wanted, so I changed the gold to a more antique looking gold by adding some black in and just kind of covered the whole thing in a lot more of a dark shade. It turned out way better than where it was going previously though, so I'm really happy with how this turned out. Part 2 is about upgrading book covers. I have one here I got for 10 cents at a thrift shop, and this other one I made alongside my Dark Academia video where I showed you how to make notebooks from scratch. You could make a larger one by just folding the paper once though, or even copy and paste poems or stories into a Word document, shift it horizontally and print it out, doing the same sewing method to create your own book. Slapping on a simple cover to that, you can use any of those bases to do the following project, which is to grab some hot glue and optionally some wire, using the hot glue and wire to add different raised designs to your piece. You can do a vertical strip of wire on the spine, you can do corner details, you can do smaller horizontal strips, or use the wire and glue down a uniform arch at the top. Whatever your design though, it will look crazy at this point, so we gotta grab some fabric. I would recommend a light color as well as a pretty tight weave just so it's a bit easier to paint, and glue that down. I would recommend using a thinner glue, School or Mod Podge, instead of hot glue so you can really press around those detailed edges we just added and smooth everything out. Once it is glued over the cover though, trim down those corners and fold it in so that you have no raw edges on the outside. Next comes paint, which is where it really starts coming together. And for the book, I initially started out with this really nice gray, but soon realized that I ran out of black paint and did not have the backup black acrylic paint bottle that I thought I did, so I had to make another color, but it was this really nice steel blue and I ended up really liking it, so it was fine in the end. For the notebook, I just stuck to a really nice simple beige. You can leave it here and just have a nice clean paint job with the antique design, or you can try to match the paint job to the design. Grab a bit of a dark color on your brush and brush it in between those raised areas we created to create a bit of shadow and dirt where it would naturally accumulate over time on an old book. If you wanted to go the extra mile, you can also seal the whole thing in with some more glue or spray sealant of some sort, as well as adding in a built-in bookmark if you have a bit of string, twine, twine, cord, or ribbon on the inside, while also covering up that fabric edge with the first or last piece of paper. So if you don't like how some of your books or notebooks look, I think this is such a great way to really make it dark academic and antique with a super simple and fun method. The third project or part will be actually a few simpler but related to the previous two project decor pieces. Number one is a candlestick holder that you saw in some previous footage. I've wanted one for a while and I just made the same clay that I did in my goblin core video. Depending on how big your candlestick holder is and your preference for molding, you can add a bit more flour or a bit more water to get the consistency you like and do your shape. There are a bunch of different shapes for candle holders, obviously the main size for the candle you'll be using, but the size of the base, the size of the handle. Obviously this isn't the most stable clay ever, so I would go a bit more thick on the details if you want to make sure that it will stay really sturdy. But just do whatever shape you want. You don't even have to do a candlestick. This could just be a suggestion to use clay, and then obviously let it harden over a few days, or you can bake it around 350, depending on the size of your piece, from 10 to 30 minutes. Just keep an eye on it so it doesn't burn and you should be good to go. Out of the oven, I did do the tiniest bit of sanding just to smooth around some super rough edges, but it's still not perfect and I'm not too worried about it. So I grabbed some paint and started off with a black base. Black is pretty good at smoothing out any details that you might have messed up a bit, so it is kind of a good color for a project where you can't get super perfect. And I was going to add some gold around the rim, but I decided because I was going to add jewelry, that would kind of be the metallic accent of the project. And I'm actually going to use this mainly for a jewelry holder, but of course a candle still fits, and I just think this is a really simple project that is so dark academia, really easy to make, super fun, and also has a few different purposes depending on what you want to use it for in the moment. I really like how this one turned out. The second little decor project is to just use wire and paint to give an antique or Victorian look to something. So grab a mirror or a picture frame or just a piece of cardboard, as well as some wire, make some twirly designs. I think using different variation in sizes of wire could be really interesting, and glue those down, and painting either just the wire or the edges of a frame and the wire to finish it off. And also you can give an older look to it if you mix gold and black together like I did for the globe. It's simple to do, it's a fun project. I used mine in a few different decorative ways. I think it'd be super cute on a handheld mirror and just adds a nice detail to some pieces. The third decor suggestion or project is just to have a sort of clothesline wall art hanger, if that makes any sense. Grab some twine, cord, yarn, or string. I think it'd be really cool if you braided it, and attach it to your wall by either some pins, nails, or like I did, some masking tape. This of course can then be used in a bunch of different ways. It helped me dry my map paper, or you can hang up art or to-do lists on it. A useful piece, but it can also be made super cute, and I think it adds to the academic side of dark academia with keeping all of your things in order, but also having some art by your workspace. If you'd like to learn more about dark academia through fine art or hundreds of other related topics, then I highly recommend Skillshare. They are so kindly sponsoring this video, but I do really strongly believe in what they're doing in their platform on a whole. The range of courses across the amount of countries and all the incredible teachers make such a fun learning and creative environment. The most recent course I took was this one. It's Learn to Draw, Daily Practices to Improve Your Drawing Skills by Gabriel Bricky, and I did this because I've always wanted to be that person who can just sketch something out, and I've tried to ease my way in through simpler methods and my opinion, which was watercolor, but I'm finally jumping into pencil sketches and it was such a blast. I'm not alone in my love for Skillshare though, my entire family is a huge fan. Between the 4 of us, quite a lot of Skillshare courses have been consumed. If you would like to get an entire month free of Skillshare, you can click the link in the description of this video or use my code. I seriously urge you to do so because in just a few clicks you can be browsing Skillshare, adding a bunch of courses to your watch list, and learning something new. Thank you so much Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Once again, click the link or use my code.